Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining the webinar. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us here this morning. This is kind of an encore performance of, if you will, of our Rising Legends, or the presentation deck we gave during the Connection event back in December. We were thrilled to have so many of you join us in the 3 different Connection events we did throughout the third week of December. We had nearly 70% of stores represented across the 3 different meetings that we did, from Seattle to the Walnut Creek meeting, and then down in Irvine, California. So amazing attendance. I think it was really terrific, and I think everybody who did make the time to come or could come to one of those meetings really found value in having made that effort. However, we certainly know that not all planned dates work perfectly in everybody's schedule, and we certainly listened to the feedback we got post-meeting and said, hey, okay, let's figure out a way to do another one and do it on a webinar so that really everybody can have full access to the information that was provided at those meetings. With that being said, I'm going to run through a very similar deck to what we presented back in December. Unfortunately, we do not have our folks from SRG doing a presentation this morning, so I'm going to do my best stand-in for their efforts, so if you'll indulge me. At the end of this presentation, as we always do on system webinars, we'll have plenty of time for some Q&A. We will probably push the hour mark, so I appreciate everybody's patience in that regard, but I'll stay on the line as long as needed in order to answer any questions that the audience may have. When you do get to that point, or if you do want to type in questions throughout the presentation, you can certainly use the questions feature on GoToMeeting, excuse me, on GoToWebinar, and we'll queue those questions up and roll through them at the end. So with that being said, let me jump into the presentation deck. So back in December, we talked about a few different things at the meeting. So one being the fact that we're in a shifting industry. Number 2, how we're going to position ourselves for success as a brand. And third, digging into some of those design and development details around this brand positioning project that we have. So looking at some of the industry data that we shared, I'll run through some of this and then share how that applies going forward. We know that sales and traffic are returning to growth across the industry. Traffic is down throughout the year. However, it looks like the fourth quarter data that's coming back is showing a pretty good turn to the positive for the restaurant space. But if you look overall over the course of the past several years, there's 11% fewer guests that came in Q2 of 18 than in 2013. And we see a lot of challenges when it comes to driving traffic and business into the entire restaurant space. So when we look at sales by segment, that comment isn't necessarily applicable across all categories. Fast casual, quick service are certainly taking share, I think, as we all know, from family and casual dining type of restaurants. Spending's up on limited service brands. And the consumers are being driven in to these new trials by value, the quality they offer, the speed, and the service that matches a much more discerning consumer, and it really matches that discerning consumer's expectation. And we see certain players rising out of the mix within our own segment, if you will. You see the birth of lots of independents and also new chains such as Mod or Blaze Pizza. I'll show Blaze on the next slide. But one thing to note on Mod, when you look at their average unit volumes of around 1.1 million, or you look at a Blaze Pizza, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with these brands, with a Blaze Pizza's average unit volume around 1.4 million, you ask the question, hey, what can we learn from the themes in the consumer segment that they are latching onto that is making them very, very, very popular with a more discerning consumer? What can we learn from that? What are those things that we can apply to our business? And then certainly we ask ourselves the question of, if they are doing 1.1 or 1.4 million in average unit volumes with primarily a lunch-focused consumer, why shouldn't we be in that same ballpark? So overall in the industry, we see a lot of market oversaturation. There's tons of growth. There's new restaurants coming nearly every day. We've got the proliferation of food away from home, and then new food outlets coming in like meal kits, food trucks, grocery, and this huge rise in independence opened by a lot of millennials and whatnot, lots of independent restaurants coming in. The chart on the right, I think, is really compelling. When you look at the rate of growth over the past 3 years, actually 4 years, excuse me, for chain restaurants versus the growth of just the U.S. population, chain restaurants are growing at 2.5 times the rate of the U.S. population. So the pie is getting sliced smaller and smaller. The growth in off-premise is also a contributing factor to some of the challenges. To-go sales are significantly outpacing the growth of dine-in, and that's a 10% growth factor. So if you see on that chart, that top blue line, that's a nice positive comp performance for to-go sales, but yet you see that consistent negative trend for dine-in sales over the course of the past year. So best-in-class brands are certainly outpacing the rest of the field as well. So like anything else in the restaurant space, the better you operate, the better you execute, the better you're going to do. As an evidence of the growth of off-premise, many brands are doing an amazing job of creating really very non-traditional ways of doing business, but non-traditional only by a retro look, not looking forward. This is going to rapidly become the norm, and we have to be mindful of what some of these companies are doing. Chick-fil-A, obviously an epic brand based in the Southeast, has built 3, and I'm sure soon to be many more, 4,000 to 5,000 square foot off-premise only units that are designed solely for catering, delivery, and mobile pickup. Amazing, and they are slaying it with the performance of these restaurants. And we see the impacts from some of this in our own Roundtable Pizza sales mix. We see delivery declining as a percentage of our total sales, as our opportunity to capture that traditional kind of pizza and Chinese food delivery option. Now with the prevalence of all kinds of third-party delivery, the aggregators, and giving people choice and basically get whatever food they want whenever they want it, we're seeing that impact on our business. One of the pressures we also know that is there is rising labor costs. As we know, California minimum wage went up January 1, Oregon's going up, Washington's going up. Everywhere we operate, we're seeing pressure on labor. And since 15, it continues to tick up, and it's not really going to change. All right, turnover is also at a record high. And when you see stats like what was being reported around millennials, with nearly 55% reporting they're not engaged at work, 60% saying they're open to a new job, there's really a couple of different ways that we get impacted by minimum wage. One is, or wage pressures in general. One is direct minimum wage, that the minimum is just higher than it was previously. But the second way we get hit is by not recognizing that a new and evolving workforce is more in need of being engaged at work, thus increasing our opportunity to decrease turnover. So confusing sentiments there, but the long story short is that the cost of turnover can have almost, if not more of an impact on our bottom line than minimum wage itself. If you look at some of these industry stats and say that the average impact on a business is around $14,000 per manager lost, that involves recruiting, training, loss of business, et cetera, that's 1.4% on our P&Ls. So figuring out ways to be more of an employer of choice, to create ways to retain our best employees who have built relationship with our consumers, can have as much impact on mitigating the impact of minimum wage as anything else we're going to do. So things we need to be mindful of across the industry going forward. When we look forward into 19, this challenge is not going to go away. And I hate to be a storm cloud on an otherwise sunny day. However, we've got to be recognizing where we have opportunities going forward. That chart's really compelling, that over the next 10 years, there's going to be 1.6 million restaurant jobs needed, but a decrease in the workforce, or the typical workforce, that 16 to 24-year-old, of 1.3 million. So we are in this war for talent as it's become known in the industry. And we've got to be very mindful of how we become an employer of choice. When we look at our technology and information, clearly that is evolving as fast as ever when it applies to the restaurant space. You see Amazon Go opening up truly no cashier lines. That they are going to be they're already cranking out new stores left and right for their Amazon Go concept. So it's really pretty amazing what's happened in the space. Customization is absolutely a key going forward. And it's different from just saying, hey, here's what I want on my pizza. The customization we're referring to going forward into 2019 is looking at the guests and listening to them, and what they're communicating to us through research is that they want the product when they want it, because time is the new currency. They want their product how they want it, made to their exacting specifications, and they darn sure where they want their product where they want it through things like delivery, third-party delivery, and to make it convenient for the consumer. So they want it when they want it how they want it, and they certainly want it where they want it. These are the themes. So overall, if you look at 2019, there were three big key takeaways that as a brand that we look at. One is that we absolutely have to acknowledge that we are in a fight for share of the customer's wallet and stomach and hearts and minds. So if we do not have the mentality that the way we grow business, or the way any restaurant has to grow business in 2019, is by taking share from somebody else. Statistically, there's no real growth. In other words, the pace of population is not outstripping the pace of restaurant growth. Therefore, and again, statistically, the only way to grow sales is by taking from a competitor. We've got to have that dogfight mentality. Number two is overall experience is king, and I'll statistically show this a little bit more in just a couple of seconds. And third, employee engagement is paramount. So employee engagement, great employees affecting a great overall restaurant experience is at the core of our ability to drive traffic. So we've got to create an environment that employees want to be engaged with. So the fight for share, experience being king, and looking at ways to create better and more long-lasting employee engagement. So we asked ourselves the question, are we competing to win? And we say that we're at a strategic inflection point for the brand, which is defined as a time period when an organization must respond to disruptive change in the business environment effectively or potentially face deterioration. And I think we're at that point now. And that's not to be negative, but it's more of a realization that big things can and should happen going forward in order to allow us to be competitive going into the future. And one of those things is to be grounded in what really drives our business. And to me, it's the pyramid of success. And what that looks like is that we have, and the way you read this chart is you start at the bottom and you build up pyramids. And pyramids are a symbol of something that's long-standing and fundamentally sound, and something that can stand the test of time. So when we build pyramids, we focus first on having the absolute best people. We've got to train them right, we've got to recruit them right, we've got to retain them, we've got to reward them, and we've got to recognize the best people. And that's all of us, whether it's those in the company, the corporate side of the business, the franchisor side, whether it is franchisees, team members, we've got to recognize and keep the best people so that they can execute on that next line, which is the operation side of the business. We've got to be restaurant ready, meaning we've got to have perfection ready for every guest when they walk in the door. So clean, fast, friendly. We've got to deliver on wow service. And that doesn't mean all kinds of crazy stories. We had an amazing story this past week of a manager who stayed open for a traveler who was stuck in a snowstorm. And the manager stayed at his store and allowed that family to stay at his restaurant all night long and stayed with them all night long. Those are the hero stories that we oftentimes celebrate. Wow service in this regard is more about doing those every guest type items extraordinarily well and extraordinarily consistently. That's use of our name, use of the guest name, holding the door open for somebody on their way in, saying thank you, please. If you see somebody walking to the door carrying a few pizza boxes on the way out, you rush to the door and hold the door for them or carry out the boxes yourself. Those are those little wow service moments that create a memory in a guest's head. Third, of course, we've got to make our high quality product extremely consistently and accurately, something we definitely have opportunities on, but those are the operational basics. When we do those, we move up the focus on our financial fundamentals. We don't have to have big words here. We're talking about food costs. We're talking about labor. We're talking about challenging ourselves to schedule not in hour increments, but in 5 to 15-minute increments. Are we doing key item counts on a daily basis? These are the basics we've got to do to make sure we're running fundamentally sound restaurants. Once we know we do, we can start marketing, and that's where that green bar LSM kicks in. That's local store marketing. Are we owning the 1, 3, 5 mile rings around our restaurant? And when we are doing those bottoms four, it lessens the demand that we place on that top capstone called media. Media works best when there's an awesome fire already raging at the store level. From great execution to great local store marketing, when we go on air, it should be like pouring gasoline on a fire. And then in the course of doing all that, profit and value gets driven to all stakeholders involved. And I love the quote on the left. And to me, it's absolutely accurate, is that advertising is the tax that you pay for being unremarkable in what you do. And if we were delivering on amazing guest experiences consistently, we would lessen the need for us to be on air, driving new guests into our restaurants. Now, all year long, we've been talking about these strategic pillars, and they remain the same. Asking ourselves the question of what can we do to drive top-line sales? What can we do to enhance the guest experience? What can we do to maximize unit-level economics? And then what can we do to better communicate and support each other? So I want to talk about a goal that we've set. We've shared this now in the different meetings that we've had, something very specific and measurable, and taking a look at kind of a 3-year vision cast for the brand. Excuse me. And that is, we firmly believe that we can be a $1.5 million average unit volume brand 3 years from now. If you look at where the Blaze of the Mod numbers point to and where they already are, when you look at the core amazing pizza we have, we absolutely think we can and should be at this level 3 years from now. Now, before I tell you how we're going to get there, we have to level set on where we actually are from an execution standpoint. Now, hopefully you all are on the GEM program, the Guest Experience Management Program, and you're tracking the surveys you get in, the social media followings you have, the contact form, responses and people reaching out for contact. And we've shared a lot of this data in the past. What we haven't shared previously, other than in our previous connection events, is where we fall versus the industry and how the guests are communicating to us about how we're performing based upon their feedback. And the reality is that as a brand, we're currently significantly underperforming the fast casual index. So the top performers are performing at an 85% overall satisfaction mark. The average of fast casual performers is at a 73. The bottom performers are performing at a 61% top box score. We're around 66. And that's not overly good. When you look at some of the other data points on here, like likelihood to recommend, we're at 59%. The way to read that is that 59% of our guests are communicating they're highly likely to recommend our restaurant to a friend based upon their experience that day. Flip it over. That means 41% of the guests coming in are saying that they're not highly likely to recommend us based upon their experience. That's 4 in 10. Pretty concerning, and it puts us right down towards the bottom of what some of the other fast casual performers are reporting. A couple of other categories that we can benchmark ourselves against: cleanliness and value. So cleanliness is totally within our control. We can keep our stores clean. That should not be a problem. But if you look at where we're performing at a 57% mark, that's right down to the bottom of the heap. When you look at a 27-point delta against where the top performers industry are, and by the way, that includes the Blazes and the Mods of the world, we are putting ourselves at a significant disadvantage. And all of those things ladder across to have guests self-report their value perception of our brand. And we are right at the bottom of the heap, unfortunately. So at that 45% mark, pretty darn concerning. So it gets to that piece that we sometimes hear about is that, hey, you guys are priced really high. Well, I would submit that value is an equation. Now, the value equation has always been, in the past, value equals quality and service divided by the price that you pay. So in other words, the higher the quality and the higher the service, as long as the price is at a reasonable level, the output of that is your value score. That's always been the piece in the past, but I will tell you now that that's no longer the case. It's not just about quality and service and cleanliness. Those are just antes into the game. If you are not clean, if you are not friendly, if you are not providing a high quality product, you're not even in the consideration set. Today, value is more about the overall experience that you have with a brand divided by the price that you pay. And today, our consumer is clearly articulating us that the overall experience they have with our brand is not worth the price. So we've got to fix that. So let's talk about how we're going to get there. We have a plan, and we're focusing on those 4 buckets that I talked about before, but I'm going to key upon 3 main items that we think are going to catalyze growth over the course of the next 3 years. One is our brand vision, positioning, and remodel strategy. One is our best-in-class off-premise platform. And the third is an overall modernization of the brand. Clearly, if you take a look at some of these images that we have in the stores, we are all over the board when it comes to brand image. And number 2, nobody would debate that we are incredibly dated in terms of our look and feel. What that creates is an environment where the consumer doesn't necessarily trust us to have a consistent guest experience. So we enlisted the help of an industry expert to help us create a North Star for our brand called Sterling Rice Group. And they have done brand experience and brand vision casting for lots of different brands in the industry. And we'll dive much further into all the different outputs of this particular project in just a second. We're super excited about where we're headed with the brand because we know that there's a return. When we simply look at some of the remodels that at least the corporate stores have done in the past, and some of the sales lifts that the stores have gotten with what I think everybody would describe as not an all the way to bright type remodel, it's pretty compelling what some of those results have been. So we're excited what a really well done remodel can help deliver for the system. The second piece is implementing a best-in-class off-premise platform. You certainly saw in the previous slides what that can mean, and what that has been doing in the industry about creating alternative channels to distribute our products. So we're working on this, and we're engaging the help of experts to help us drive the catering side of our business as well, and focusing on what have become industry norms and excellence across the business. So leveraging the partnership with same firms that Schlotzsky's, Panera, Chick-fil-A, that they're using to help power their design and power their catering programs. So more to come. We know that the dollars are there. We know that other brands who have done quality catering programs, they represent anywhere from 10 to 40% of incremental sales on top of what they currently do. The average for the good performers, somewhere between 15 to 25% of sales. The long story short here is that this is a massive opportunity to help develop our business going forward into the future. The third big key strategic initiative is an overall modernization of the brand. From operations within menu simplification, lean process, getting faster, technology, marketing, menu strategy, there's a list of projects that are currently being activated on right now that we're very excited about. The first one is menu strategy. So there's no doubt about it that the chains in the industry that are focused on a core offering of what they are best at have seen a better return on that simplification and investment than brands that have more complex menus for the consumer. That's what we're focused on as well, is be great at the things that we're great on today. Just do them better. Now, there are a number of different menu strategy projects that are in place today. So we're working on a stuffed crust pizza, as you know. We're working on edible cannolis. We've got a gluten-free crust that we'll bring forward into the system that we've been testing for a little while. RTU tomato sauce. We've got a number of things in the pipeline. But what we don't have is a very clearly defined, well-articulated, 3-year vision for where we're going with the menu. I don't think the brand's ever really had that, and that's okay. So what we have done is piggyback on the back of the great work that Sterling Rice has done to leverage their culinary capabilities. So we are about halfway through our menu and innovation strategy with Sterling Rice Group. Now, they've done great menu work for brands such as Qdoba, Jack in the Box, Cinnabon, many others, and they're doing the same work for us and following a very similar process that they've used with other brands as well, taking us through research, looking at industry trends, the casual dining landscape, all the way to that creation of a great menu strategy for us. And we're well along the way to getting this complete. And when you look at menu strategy, part of the reason why it's important is that you can't have everything be a King Arthur Supreme. Sometimes we need just some basics. We need a gluten-free pizza. We're in California, for heaven's sakes. We need a gluten-free offering just to check that box. But the big output in all of this is 12 products that we can execute to fill up our product pipeline over the course of the next 3 years, aligned with our goals and objectives. Products that are clear, on brand, differentiated, and that are, of course, able to be executed seamlessly and are profitable for our restaurants. So very excited about where we are and excited about the partnership we have with a number of key franchisees who are working with us on this particular project. Next one, of course, is technology. We've been testing a POS system for a little while. We're going to be testing another. So excited about the work we're doing on the technology front. And certainly it's huge, especially when you look at our current environment on some of the elements that our current environment has versus the new ecosystem that we are efforting to create as soon as possible. Things like loyalty apps and all the things. We've got to go check the box on all of these things to make ourselves competitive where our competitive set is already within the industry. So when you look at all those things, you do the financial modeling and all of those, it's huge. Reasonable estimates get us to ladder up to an objective of that 1.5 million 3 years from now, and we very much think we can get there. We get there by continuing to focus on these 4 items, as we've shared before. But I will also say what also has to continue to happen, and I'm excited about the progress that we've made together, we've got to continue to evolve our thinking and to focus on the one most important objective that we have, which is also our common objective between a franchisor and a franchisee. And that is, we've got to work together to get together and get and keep more guests who come in more often, spending more of their hard-earned money relative to the size of the markets we serve while maintaining appropriate margins. That really is the core objective that all of us associated with Round Table Pizza have, which is to work together to get and keep more guests who come in more often, spending more of their hard-earned money relative to the size of the markets we serve while we maintain appropriate margins and continue to drive our business. So we have to align upon that. It's nice to be able to work with great franchisees throughout this process, and we've been doing that. So all of that strategy leads us up to the work that we've done with Sterling Rice to help accelerate our brand going forward and to identify and research and create a positioning that is going to be a differentiatable proposition for us going forward. So as we partner with Sterling Rice, we know what the opportunity is. We know that we have an iconic brand that we are all extremely proud of, with a heritage and high quality dishes and a commitment to authenticity as a last on its pizza. But we all have to recognize the brand must evolve to keep pace with a changing consumer. I think that is a very well-known and undebatable fact. So we asked SRG to help us uncover insights about our consumer and to crystallize our brand promise in order to create a more consistent and unique, differentiated, if you will, experience to ensure that we can remain competitive going forward. SRG has done great work. They look at insights, turning them into innovation, and then finally bringing all those things forward into activation in the marketplace. They're based in Boulder, Colorado, and been around for 24 years or so. They're a great agency. They also know food. They've done a ton of work in the culinary space. They have a culinary side of their business, which I've already mentioned that we're leveraging right now. And they truly are experts when it comes to all things restaurant and very trendy. And they've worked with some relatively small brands, from Starbucks, Papa Murphy's, DiGiorno's. Take a list, take a look. They've helped and added value to a ton of different brands across the space. Let me give you a couple of examples. So SRG worked with Cinnabon back a number of years ago to create a new positioning strategy, much like they're doing for us, refresh their store design, and kind of create a more appealing look. And that's being rolled out across the country right now. So if you go into a mall today, this is probably the Cinnabon look that you are going to see. And again, a very iconic but older brand that was in need of a shot in the arm. When you look at what they did from a new brand standpoint, this is a kind of a ground up work that they did. This is Sbarro's fast casual concept. But again, hitting on all the consumer trends and really help Sbarro kind of capture their heritage, but in a new fast casual type of format. Speaking of Sbarro, they were able to go back and help capture some of what has made Sbarro really kind of an iconic brand for many years, especially on the East Coast. And the relaunch, it's kind of driven transaction and growth in North America for them. And that's the first time in a long time they've actually experienced growth. And it was kind of a staid, kind of tired mall, kind of that kind of very low perception of quality type of pizza. And I think I still agree with that, by the way, but certainly the image is no longer what's holding them back. Again, really refresh that brand quite a bit. And in my experience with the brand, certainly the work that they've done at CiCi's has really helped catapult that brand from, and we saw amazing results through the work that they've done. So they've done great work for a lot of different brands. Schlotzsky's just relaunched their awesome eatery concept. And then certainly on the culinary side, they've won all kinds of awards for the work. Probably many of you have eaten this product. Their Buttery Jack burger, which won a bunch of awards and drove a 9% increase in system-wide sales upon that launch. So they got some game. That's the message. So as we engaged with SRG, we went back to the beginning. This project was never about creating a new roundtable pizza. This was always about going back and looking at what this concept was always originally based upon, and then evolving how we present that to the consumer. So it wasn't about creating something new. It was about embracing all those great attributes that are still worthy of being presented to the consumer today. So when Bill Larson founded Roundtable Pizza, he created a gathering place where you could, quote unquote, share a little pizza with somebody you love. We still think that is applicable today. It's to be a family gathering place with delicious, high quality pizza. And if you look at some of those quotes, we just love those, right? So Kara from Sacramento said, Roundtable has left a legacy of love. They put a lot of love into their pizza. Every pizza is the same. I've been coming here since I was a kid. I've never had something that doesn't taste like Roundtable. There's a lot of nostalgia with this brand, and there's a lot of things that are so worthy of just curating going forward. However, since the brand was founded, the pizza category has evolved. Dynamics are shifting in the pizza category, especially as fast casual and retail operators continue to present consumers with more options and as third-party delivery encroaches on pizza's off-premise category. So how do we maintain our niche in this really competitive space? And in fact, pizza's really become a whole pop culture phenomenon. Pizza, if I'm not mistaken, there's a crazy stat that pizza by like a factor of 10 is the most Instagram product food on the planet. It's pretty amazing. And you've got this whole culture of pizza aficionados out there and identifying themselves with the brands that they happen to patronize. New competition has created an even larger consideration set. So most pizza lovers aren't brand loyal, something that's probably different than it was a number of years ago. A couple of quotes. Data shows that consumers are becoming increasingly discerning about each pizza component and becoming pizza connoisseurs. So not just that the pizza is good, but what are those ingredients? Where do they come from? And the nice thing is we have a great story to tell there. People are pizza nomads. They're not loyal, and they usually go anywhere that there's a deal. I think it's hard to be loyal in the pizza category. And then, of course, Shannon from Sacramento really sums it up well. Pizza is like sex. When it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's still kind of good. So Roundtable is like really great sex. Domino's is like, yeah, whatever, just get it done. I will pay for Roundtable because I haven't had better pizza. And Little Caesars is like, is that pepperoni? So not my quote, it's Shannon from Sacramento's quote, but I think she sums it up just fine. So on top of that, there's been a proliferation of fast casual competition and increasingly tech-forward QSR players bringing new life to the space. We see what Blaze and the Mods have done, Domino's with a pizza track, where we've got to be mindful of all the different ways that consumers are accessing brands. Because when you look at the opportunity, we have a very small slice of the overall industry pie, and we deserve and we ought to demand a much larger share. So as we've gone through the research and as we've listened through focus groups and consumer research and industry data points, we've defined our target. And that's one thing the brand really didn't have before, which is a very clearly articulated target that we were trying to chase as an aspirational consumer. So welcome and meet our Everyday Legends target. So our Everyday Legends have a number of different things about them that we are identifying. household income, they're active, they're eco-conscious, they're in the know, they're constantly exploring new things, trying new tastes and flavors and things of that nature. They're smart shoppers. Yeah, they're willing to spend for quality, but they do research and look at where they're going to get the best value for the money. And they're willing to splurge on a top tier product as long as it meets their experiential expectations. They're also digitally and socially connected, which who isn't these days, right? So following blogs, influencers, Instagram, they're social networkers, sharing photos of their food, and they're browsing the web for reviews online before making decisions about where they're going to spend their hard-earned dollars. They also have extremely high expectations. They're looking for food they crave, but they're also looking, again, that overall experience, that combination of choice and variety, cleanliness, quality, the right atmosphere, and made for them. Some of the other things about this everyday legend consumer, they try to live life to the fullest and don't let the little things get them down. So we love some of these quotes, and we've taken them to be mindful of how we design stores for these people going forward. This person said, my motto is don't sweat the small stuff. Everything is small stuff. Don't take everything so seriously. You realize that stuff doesn't make a difference if you don't let it. And like Sarah said, I have fun. That's always my motto. Say yes. If you're thinking about doing it, do it. Life is short. Eat the brownie. I ran a 50-mile race because someone dared me to. So on and so forth. Live in the moment. And although these consumers try to be mindful about health and the way they eat, they don't deprive themselves from what they want, especially when dining out. So like Anthony said, when I go out, I'm not going to get a chicken breast. I can make that at home. I'll get a pizza, and maybe I won't eat the whole thing, but I'm not going to limit myself from eating what I crave. So in doing some work with consumers associate Roundtable Pizza with nostalgic and joyful childhood memories. It's also the perfect place to celebrate all of life's little moments. And we did some exercises with consumers and asked them to create collages and word maps and things like that. I love the Facebook survey when it said, I love the family memories that eating Roundtable evokes. I've been eating Roundtable with my family since I was a kid and will forever hail it as the best pizza in the world. Roundtable for family time, Roundtable being iconic, and all of those types of things. That's great. Roundtable really and truly is what we all are very proud of it for being, which is a true legacy brand with warm, dependable, welcoming, kind, and trustworthy attributes. However, when you see some of the quotes, you start questioning yourself of what really is that perception. I see Roundtable as a little old man. He's familiar, nostalgic, loyal, and trustworthy grandpa who's great with kids, warm and welcoming. Or Dory in Sacramento says, I see a refined, wise, older man because they have refined their recipe and it's consistent. Though old guys are sometimes set in their ways and they aren't very good with change. So as much as it's great that people perceive us to be this life legacy brand, that may not be the right positioning for us going forward. So loyal, light, and lapsed users alike agree that we offer a deliciously fresh, high-quality pizza. However, consumers also say that the brand has not done enough to keep up with their evolving needs. Like Ron said, nothing is necessarily wrong with it. It's great pizza, but I've sort of grown out of Roundtable. Or Dory saying, I remember coming here when I was a kid for sports games, birthday parties and such, but it hasn't changed at all since that time. It's been 30 years. So you see where that opportunity is. So in general, while many consumers think that pizza's quality is worth the high price, others feel that we haven't kept up with the time. And the dated overall in-restaurant experience doesn't match the premium product. Like Sarah said, it's always the same. I never even look at the menu. I wish they would come up with something new. I associate most of their restaurants with being dingy and dark. And I go to the Roundtable that seems like it hasn't been updated since '86. It's definitely not as bright or as lively or as other trendy places. So again, what we look at and say is that the time is now to craft a cohesive brand experience that capitalizes on what we're best at and leans into the equities that we like to honor from the past. And as we've been saying as stakeholders in this business, we don't believe that we're actually overpriced. We very much believe that we're just under-experienced, and that is what's going to drive a better value proposition to our consumer. So the future for us awaits, and we've got to go capture it. Now, brands do evolutions all the time. Whether you realize it or not, you've seen logos change over the years. You've seen evolutions of the business. And like this Forbes article, I think well sums up, businesses need to show evidence of being alive. We've got to show that we've got a pulse, that we learn, grow, and evolve just as people do, and our visual personality needs to reflect that. Branding evolution allows you to stay connected with your consumer, and if your customers can't connect with your brand, you will not get your message across to them effectively. So we've got to take a look at what we do in the brand that we present to our consumer and make sure that we're evolving along with them. And we've looked at a few key tenets for how we change the brand. This idea of evolution, not necessarily revolution. This idea of making sure we can have a logo that maintains relevance with the consumer over the course of time, but noting that restaurants opening today have an air of simplicity, right? Brands that are established before the digital age sometimes find the logos looking a little good on letterhead, but not so good at digital format. More modern, clean line design currently, it's all about simplicity, and usually simple logos translate best, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that in this case. And of course, you see articles all the time about brands evolving. Wendy's is a great and only the latest example of this. So all through this process, we've been looking and saying, hey, what is that North Star? As all of us being stakeholders in this Roundtable Pizza brand, what is that thing that is our shining light that we are chasing after? So we've created a new brand, not created a new, but we've refined our brand vision for Roundtable. Before we share what it is, let me share a few things that it is and it is not. Sometimes this is a helpful comparison to help define what we're doing. So a brand vision is not an external statement. This is not something we're putting out to a consumer. What it is an internal strategic mantra. It's not a tagline or ad campaign, but it is a rallying cry for the entire organization to get behind. It's not open to interpretation. It's a benchmark, but it is a benchmark for clarity and consistency. And it's certainly going through the list, not a short-term look. This is about a long-term fundamental vision for the brand that carries us into the future to help us maintain relevancy. So to create a future that builds on Roundtable's success today, we must establish a brand vision that, again, is long-term and aspirational, but yet believable. That connect higher orders ideals such as emotions and other functional ideals that connect and motivate both internal and external audiences alike, something that differentiates our brand going forward and establishes a long-term blueprint for brand management, including communications, brand experience, menu development, and really all touch points of our brand. So with that, let me share a little bit of the Roundtable Pizza brand vision. Using SRG's proprietary system of life drivers, what we did was mapped out where other brands are anchoring themselves today. From this idea of empowerment, release, joy, we've anchored in two areas because we think it matches our brand, or based on the feedback that our guests have given us, it matches where we're headed as a brand. This idea of respect, which is about conveying our premium products along with validation of quality, and this idea of belonging, which of this idea of bringing everyone together in affiliation and appreciation. We think those are ownable white spaces for us to build our brand around. Because our consumers today, as we said before, are demanding a more elevated brand experience. And we need to evolve the Roundtable experience into a contemporary differentiator that is infused with meaning. As Jordan said, Roundtable used to stand for something, but I don't see anything in the restaurant that reminds me of it. Or what we love is someone you saying, hey, WTF, I don't even see a single Roundtable in here. And how many of us have stores that don't have a single Roundtable? So we look at that and say, what is our brand positioning? And we call it Rising Legends. So let me walk you through it. What we say is we believe that legends honor the past and inspire the future. We make a promise to save you a seat at the table so you can celebrate what makes every day legendary. because only Round Table Pizza has a code of honor that commands an absolute commitment to crafting a flavorful legacy with time-honored family recipes and gold standard ingredients. That we command a generous, chivalrous service that provides the respect we have, proves the respect that we have for our guests and the pride we take in our trade, and that we offer up an inviting atmosphere where everyone is welcome to find their place and end the quest for what they crave. And the manifestation of that, this archetype, we define as the noble guardian, somebody who's bold, confident, gallant, fun-loving, and progressive. Defining the noble guardian a little bit, and this is important because it does play out in how the store becomes designed. This is our brand persona. It speaks to our consumer and established voice, signaling that Round Table can be trusted and provide exceptional value and quality. The noble guardian really works to embody our iconic legacy from the past and speaks with pride, confidence, and conviction to our consumer. The noble guardian is also approachable, with a little bit of a hint of lightheartedness. The brand's not going to be overly serious. We want to have fun, we want to smile. And the noble guardian also personifies our culture's work hard, play hard mentality to ensure that we are serious about the work that we do and care about all that goes into our product. But we're still entertaining. We want to be a catalyst for good times in our restaurant. So back to the are but never guardrails that we've established within this noble guardian positioning. That we are iconic and timeless, but we're not conservative or stuffy. We're bold, we're courageous, but we're not necessarily risky or edgy. We're merry and lighthearted, but not really zany or wacky. We're thoughtful and approachable, but we're not overly solicitous. We're passionate, but not zealous. And I think we're forward. We need to be looked at as being forward thinking, but not necessarily the trendy newcomer to the marketplace. Culture is at the center of all of this, and culture being defined as a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterize an organization or a group. We've defined that as well within this brand persona, this idea of honor, valor, and revelry. Honor by taking pride, pleasure, privilege, and passion about everything we do. The sense of respect and having esteem for how we operate our trade, about always doing what is right. The sense of valor, being bold and brave, acting with courage, having strength of mind and spirit. And then if you want to complete our coat of arms for Round Table, that sense of revelry, the idea of celebrating community and collaboration, having fun. And we love the phrase, just make merry in everything we do. At the end of the day, this is a pizza party. And we should have honor, valor, and revelry with every guest experience that we have in our restaurants. So, in order to manifest this in our restaurants, we took inspiration from the past to create a contemporary identity for the future. So now I'm going to show you the look and feel of where we're headed with the brand. And the first place to start is with logo. So welcome to the new Round Table Pizza logo. Now, for those of you who are taking a look at this, hopefully within a few seconds, you start to see something in between that D and the T that really embodies that noble guardian archetype. And if you look closely, facing left, you see the outline of a knight's helmet with the cross on top of the T being the plume of that knight's helmet. What we love about this logo, whether it's white or black on white, or whether it's white on black, is how it pops off the page. It's strong, bold, and we think that it matches our pizza. In other words, our product that we sell is hearty. We don't have a delicate pizza product. This is a bold offering, and it's a bold logo to match our bold product. We also love how it pops off the page and that round logo concept in the bottom right. It still forms that knight's helmet, but the left-hand side of the knight's helmet combined with it looks like an R and a T as it comes together, and that's obviously on purpose. So we love that hidden nature, that sort of sense of discovery about the knight in our logo and what that can stand for. Just taking inspiration, looking at different treatments, we looked at different options for how to apply this to our restaurants, and we took some guiding principles. We wanted to keep on telling the story and build a legend in our restaurant. We wanted to add beautification by simplification. There's lots of stuff going on. So how do we bring that back down to help the guests focus on just those things that we want them to see, and let's streamline and reduce complexity whenever we can to ensure that our brand experience is easy to understand. And we've got to design intuitively. So when designing a store, it's easy to be caught up in lots of renderings and premium materials, but obviously at the end of the day, we got to make sure this is a profitable way to build restaurants and remodel restaurants going forward, confident that we're doing that. So we took inspiration and to help design a brand character from a lot of different things. This idea of kind of a forge, blacksmith, armor, and very crafted type elements. So let me introduce you to the brand environment, that store of the future. As I do, keep in mind, this isn't all the way to bright prototype. What's being delivered, and I can share it at the end, are 3 versions of this. More of a good, better, best approach. So keeping budgets in mind and understanding that an all the way to bright remodel or all the way to bright new store may not be applicable in every single market. Some markets may command a little bit lesser of a reinvestment. We'll have to make those decisions together as a brand, but we certainly have options. This is also a kit of parts. So not every store is laid out exactly like this. In fact, the one consistent thing we have across Roundtable is that all the stores are inconsistent in terms of how they're laid out. So this is designed as a kit of parts, but there are key core elements that need to be built into every store environment. So looking at our interior design palettes, they're anchored in lots of contrasting patterns with vibrant pops of color. Materials convey that kind of legendary quality of forged metals, stone, and wood. The elements are accented by ornate patterns and typography, which we just kind of love how this all comes together. So I'm going to share with you a couple of overall looks, and I'll walk you through some of the different kit of parts that we have for the store. So you see a nice clean look here. From that vision of the store, that much more modern and sophisticated that we have today, but still playful and very approachable. And looking back up at the front counter, you see the very purposeful pops of red with the use of blacks and whites and the typography on our brand wall. Then one more look at the dining room with lights. One question gets asked a lot is TVs. TVs are absolutely in here at very strategic places throughout the restaurant, just not on this rendering, in order to not block the view of the entire store. So TVs are definitely a part of all this. We looked at tables, very purposeful, and all these materials have now been sourced and are being packaged together to be able to deliver a great brand book out to the community. So here's an overall look at the restaurant. Let me walk you through a different set of axons about the restaurants. We have 7 different main axons. One is our entry and brand corridor. So as you order, if you walk through on that left-hand side, you see this beautiful entry wall bringing out different coats of arms from the original Knights of the Round Table. Really simple way to walk people through, to create a guest flow, and to give us a presence also from the outside, especially in stores where we have windows that people can see through. Looking at our front counter and how we can redesign this, we wanted to open up the kitchens to create a modern interpretation of a forge where skilled craftsmen are kind of creating their works of art. Being able to give people a glimpse into the kitchen, but not necessarily let them see everything. The pickup area is integrated into the forge with intentional placement of packaging, ready-to-drink beverages are built into the counter, and having a very purposeful front counter that is both efficient, but also makes a statement for when guests first walk in. The underside of that counter is built out with a copper laminate, but accented with a nice light. So it looks like it glows, gets that nice, rich, coppery color. Another look back at the front counter. If you notice that floor graphic, excuse me, the floor design and the use of tile moving into the wood, subliminally that also creates a pathway for the guests. We do want our guests to follow a certain path throughout the restaurant. Looking at our brand wall and ways for us to elevate our salad bar or our garden bar, we're putting these final pieces together now. The beverage station topping, they're integrated into a prominent storytelling moment that really highlights the premium aspects of our legendary food offerings. We really think this elevates the entire experience. Whether this is a bar or a tap wall, looking at it more of a tap room kind of style. So a signature brand moment worthy of the Round Table Pizza name. We gather to lift spirits and connect to the authenticity and community of our brand. The table feels like it was born from a tree, and it kind of has that look and feel. The curving tap wall, it really can be a very iconic feature for new stores, and an opportunity for people to connect, share a beer, share a pizza, and create some fellowship. We've definitely incorporated different types of seating areas, this one being a banquet seating, with high back booths, uplit wooden slats. Kind of brings a dramatic look and a sense of warmth to the space. Having character and invoking this feelings of a dining hall in the restaurants is really pretty cool, and I think we've done a good job of it. We've also designed intuitively, as I said before, not having hanging fixtures anchored over any tables, allowing full flexibility for tables to be moved and designed or pushed together as teams come in, things of that nature. So we love how this all has come together and the feeling that it evokes when you're sitting in one of these restaurants. I mentioned the tables themselves, making sure that they're wide enough for one of our large pizzas to sit on, and even how we present the pizzas to the consumer as we're speccing out a way for the pizza to be displayed in the manner that it deserves, that sense of respect on a kind of a new guest experience. Looking at these high back signature booths, they kind of feel like they're fit for a king or queen. They're kind of a really nice sophistication to the restaurant, but a very flexible space as well. I know in other restaurants that I've been to with my daughters, you can fit anywhere from 4 people in here to probably 10 if you have a bunch of teenagers who want to just kind of squeeze in there and leverage the space. So we love how this all plays out. Certainly our party rooms, we wanted to make them sophisticated enough to have a business meeting in there for those of you who have space to do a party room, but also playful and whimsical enough to be able to have a young person's birthday party, right? 10-year-old's birthday party. But both should be able to be had in there. And then, of course, we move on to the game room with some very simple floor and ceiling graphics, elevating the game room space to make it less of an afterthought and something that's very purposeful and brought into the rest of the look and feel of the restaurant. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the visit, the absolute room that will be the #1 most Instagram room in our space, the throne room, otherwise known as a restaurant, because everyone needs a little throne time. Again, purposely ideated. We're talking half walls of tile. This is not an overly expensive build. It's just a vinyl wall graphic on the front of some nice tile. That's it. So very, very intuitively built. Very cool though. And I hope we don't get too many selfies while people are actually sitting on the throne. Looking at exteriors, we've done some pretty cool work to create some pop. Now, of course, not all of these elevations would be available in all locations as we do remodels, but certainly where we can, we certainly should, because the look is really dramatic for how to create some visual noise outside of our stores. That's one version, a side version here, and whenever possible with the glass walls, the idea is to start the experience from the outside in, and the more people can see about what they can expect when they walk in the doors, the better off we're going to be. Looking at a blade sign and the way to use that secondary logo treatment, and again, that beautiful signage on the top of that main sign on top of the building. Looking at other brand touch points that are currently being explored and developed, I'll share some examples of things you may see going forward. Menu boards. Our stores do not have menu boards today, but by gosh, we definitely should. We're looking at static boards now that really fit with that look and decor for the rest of the restaurant. Looking at uniforms which are currently being sourced at what we call that Knight logo on that baseball cap, or otherwise now known as our nightcap, and then some cool shirts. I think we all would agree that right now today, our employees, our team members, don't leave work proudly wearing the hat they have to wear while they're on duty. They hang it up in the back of the house or stuff it in a bag. But I'll tell you, everybody we've showed these to so far has said, man, I'd wear that. I'd proudly wear that outside of the restaurant. And boy, oh boy, if we can create a culture where our team members are proud to fly our flag and proud to wear our uniforms, even on their own personal time, that is one great way to keep engagement high and mitigate some turnover over the course of the year. So really excited about where we are in this particular area. And certainly when it comes to packaging, how do we elevate the overall experience of our brand by elevating the packaging to make sure that every consumable that we have clearly articulates the new brand positioning? So super excited all that, and it's just, we're in such a good space and it looks just beautiful. So hopefully you all feel the same, and really excited about where we wound up. So I'll kind of leave this here, and we're right at the hour mark. And I will go ahead and take a look at any questions that perhaps have been typed in, and see if I can answer a few of those. So I'll pause as a few come in. There's one question sitting there so far, which is about one of the gluten-free crusts. So I'm not sure I fully understand, but it says rice crust was great. Why not keep it? I think we're intending to. So Rachel, I think we're intending to keep it. So we're actually advancing that particular crust into the system. So it's more of a product question. Got a comment here, which I'll read. Won't name names, of course, but person just simply says, "This looks absolutely stunning, fantastic work." So I really appreciate that, and we're really excited about where we are. That's for sure. While people are thinking about questions, some of the next steps in this are pretty well defined. One of the things that that is coming is a true brand book. So by mid-February, we will have out the system a very clearly defined binder that details exactly what is on brand and exactly what is not. Really a document the brand has never had in the past, which is to very clearly define what the standard is for the system. So excited to have that. A couple other questions that are actually now all of a sudden streaming in. Will there be some flexibility with the black versus some other bold colors? The answer is really no. As a part of the brand book, we do have other colors in the design. You see those pops of reds and a couple of little greens. There are some elements, but in terms of allowing for individual choice when it comes to color scheme, the answer to that is no. What the objective here is to create a more consistent guest experience, but we certainly know the canvas is different from store to store. So we'll work with individual franchisees on exactly how to apply the new brand standards to your canvas in your restaurant. Next question is, when can excuse me, when can outlier stores expect to see these changes? Well, you'll see them at the same time as everybody else. So we will start to see the application of the new look and feel, logo work. We have a new website coming. All at the end of February will start rolling in. You can expect to see more communication coming in the coming actually week to 10 days. We have a system webinar next Thursday where we'll start to outline our plans for how to bring this forward to the brand: uniforms, packaging, uniform packaging, website, social media material, really advancing this throughout the system here very rapidly so our consumers can, start to see it. Who is the contact to engage for the remodels? Great question. I would suggest, Rachel, to make sure we get you the right person. Just contact your FBC, and we have Tom and Tim who are in our construction department, and they'd be more than happy to engage with you to help you start that process if that's appropriate for you. Got a question here: is everything still scheduled to roll out in March? The answer to that is sort of. Everything that was scheduled to roll out in March is. And what I mean by that, to the person asking, to everybody, is we will not have every single brand touch point deployed by March, as you might imagine. So some things have a longer lead time than others. We have to run down current inventory of certain supplies. So there definitely is going to be a transitionary period from now and, well, really through the end of the year, where certain elements, roll in with new logo look and feel at different points in time. However, we know that a lot of our core elements have very short turnaround times, and we're working on those now. So uniforms, boxes, things of that nature, we're rapidly advancing those to the pipeline. So a lot of elements will be available. We're changing over graphics and some of the marketing collateral that we use today. And actually, just as one example, the April FSI that some of you will participate in, that will have new look and feel. In fact, the commercials that we're shooting at the end of this month that will display in March will have new look and feel, new logo. So we're getting that message out there quickly. What is the estimate? Next question. What is the estimated cost for the average store? That's a great question. We don't have that data yet, but we're not that far off from it. Now, the way I would answer the question, though, is we're being mindful, of course, of cost. And again, just to reiterate, we're building it out in 3 different packages, or SRG is helping us build it out in 3 different packages, that good, better, best approach. To put that a little more directly, there are certain markets where spending probably top dollar on an all the way to bright remodel probably doesn't make financial sense. There are other markets with perhaps a more discerning consumer where the competition clearly has spent top dollar to build out their restaurants, for probably spending a bit of a premium absolutely is the right business strategy. So we're trying to give franchisees choice in terms of what those options are depending on the individual store situation. So hopefully that, at least for the short term, helps to answer that question. You'll have a lot of choice. How many stores are you remodeling with this design? Well, I can tell you right now, we've got about 8 corporate stores that have to get done over the course of the next year, just contractually. So that's a pretty good starting point. And I'll tell you that the number of franchisees who have already seen this work that are opting in, and certainly we have 21 new stores that are slated to open this year. We'll have a good chunk. So that's why we're so anxious and pushing so hard to get the brand book complete by mid-February, which it will be, so we can get this out to the system and allow people to activate, who choose to activate, to get remodels done. How are new logo items going to be integrated if the store is not remodeled? Might look more confusing. Also, any cost estimates. So I kind of talked about the cost estimates. So one of the things that branding strategists would tell us, SRG is one of those, is that you do want to start injecting new look and feel, even if a store has, for example, old signage and old look and feel, because it signifies to the consumer that something is happening. Like I talked about before, it signifies to the consumer that there's evolutions taking place, that there's strategy being employed to keep us current and relevant in the consumer's mind. So thus the reason why we're plowing forward with both commercial, website, social media, packaging, uniforms, and all those touch points. And if you think about it, if you think about websites, if you think about commercials, and then if you look at uniforms and boxes, we've pretty much hit 100% of the opportunities that people have today to interact with our brand. And as a starting point, that's pretty good. The rest of it gets layered in over the course of time as we do remodels. Next question, is there any thought to establishing or providing links to finance options for remodels? Great question, and the answer is 100% yes. We have had conversations with a number of different lending organizations. In fact, as Global Franchise Group, we already have relationships with a couple of different lenders who specifically lend in the remodel space. So more to come on that, but that is absolutely something that we're trying to facilitate and to give franchisees options and just to kind of streamline the process to get financing for any project that you may have. Is there a deadline for all locations to have this design? No. So there's things that we can require you to do, and there's things that we can't. There's not a deadline for all locations to have the design, so at this point, but we'll certainly work with you upon opportunities you have to remodel, and then, you know, as appropriate, the time for you to reimage restaurants. What is the concept for outside signage lighting? So we can have a lot of, that's a great question. So what you saw represented here is just kind of a very standard kind of box backlit signage. Depending on what the opportunities are in the center, there could be plenty of others. It could be signage that is simply, static against the building itself, perhaps has gooseneck lights illuminating it, or some upward lights. There's lots of different options that we will putting together in signage packages. So again, a lot of it has to be decisions that are made at the store. And if you think about what Starbucks does as an example on this, and what the overall objective is, if you go into a lot of different Starbucks across the country, very rarely do you see two that are built out exactly the same. However, every one that you walk into, you'll say, yeah, that looks and feels like a Starbucks. That is the same output that we're looking for through this project. It's not that we are going to make all restaurants be exactly the same with the exact same look and feel. However, we are trying to make every guest get to the point where every guest can leave saying, hey, that felt like a Round Table Pizza experience, and had the value delivered for that experience, if that makes sense. Question is, do we have a designer? Good question. We have some options there, and that will be part of the brand book communication we put together in mid-February. But we have a few different options for you on that front as well. Can we get a copy of this presentation in a PowerPoint format? We will talk about how we disseminate. This webinar is being recorded, and it'll be placed on Slice. So if you'd like to view it again to help you fall asleep this evening, that would be great. But we're more than happy to give you access to that. Got a comment on getting old square boxes back. Yeah, new boxes are not as practical and cost effective to make them. So yeah, a couple comments on boxes. Yeah, certainly we're looking at all the options we have in front of us and working with WestRock on what we want our solution to be going forward. So we're evaluating that, and we'll look at that with our different franchisee committees as well. So great question. Running through questions quickly there, and they've kind of dried up. I'll just give it another couple of seconds to see if any new questions come in. That looks like about it. Well, let me just conclude by saying that hopefully all those of you who are on the webinar today are like what you saw. There are several things that we're excited about. One, it's having a very clearly defined brand positioning that affects not only look and feel, not only marketing, but certainly the real core elements like culture, menu strategy, culinary development is imperative for our brand. I'm very proud to say I think we've locked on to a well-researched and well-grounded approach. That's very exciting. On a secondary front, just the way this manifests itself in a store environment is really exciting. The feedback we've received thus far from franchisees, consumers, and really friends and family that we've all shared this with has been incredibly positive, to say the least, about leaving out the superlatives. And we're really excited about what this can do for Round Table as a brand, but really all strategies, not just about how it looks and feels, because at the end of the day, I'll leave you with this thought, is that we can make this restaurant, we can make every single Round Table in the system look just like this rendering. However, if we fail to execute and drive those wow service experience if we don't have our restaurants ready for every single consumer who walks in the door, and we fail to make our high quality product up to our very discerning standards, all the look and feel renovations we do, all the other touch points you just saw are for naught. Because at the end of the day, this is the restaurant business and it comes down to execution. And it comes down to our joint opportunity to get and keep more guests coming in more often, spending more of their money relative to the size of the markets we serve while maintaining appropriate margins. That's our objective. Drive guests in the door through all these different strategies. So with that, I say thank you for your time, and look forward to the multiple different connection events that we have coming up throughout the spring. Have a great day. Take care.